And his whole premise is that there is no such thing as, constitutionally, there's no such thing as a limited convention for the proposing of amendments.
You are listening to And If Love Remains, a unique show spotlighting people, ideas, science, culture, and art. Your host, Mike Lovett.
Thank you so much, Rachel. You are listening to that great podcast, In the Sky, and If Love Remains. I am that wonderful host floating down like a Henry Kissinger angel, just floating down to accept all those happy babies into heaven. Hey, yes, this is Mike Levitt, your host, and we have on the line today the constitutional law scholar at the John Birch Society, Dr. Joey Wolverton. Welcome back to the show, brother.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Good to have you here today. I know that the minute that Henry Kissinger shuffled off this mortal coil, I know that Satan began to worry about his job security.
That's right, man.
He was like, "Oh my!" I'm doing a video later today because WikiLeaks. The whole Julian Assange thing is a crime against humanity,
Yeah.
but he WikiLeaks on the when Kissinger died, put up there one of the leaked conversations that he had, and I'll repeat it for you. So Kissinger says, so this is from a cable that WikiLeaks obtained, right? A diplomatic cable that they obtained. Kissinger says, before the Freedom of Information Act, I used to say at meetings, the illegal we do immediately, the unconstitutional takes a little longer. Ha ha ha. But since the Freedom of Information Act, I'm afraid to say things like that.
Yeah.
And he was a hero, man. So many Republicans thought he was such a patriot, such a, rah, kill them all, let God sort them out kind of thing,
Well, it's
And
funny. So many. I was thinking about this today as I was driving home. I was thinking about how us on the right, or those on the right. Let me say it that way. Those on the right, rightfully, just rag on what's his name, Carl Schwab or Schwab, the Klaus Schwab, and just say, what an evil guy that is, and all that. And he is like his ideas are flat out evil,
right.
but I don't think he's killed anybody. I don't think so. His ideas may have, but I don't think he has. Where I think we can directly say that the left has a good case against Henry Kissinger and the murders that dude committed at the behest of the American people.
Yeah, I can't imagine his reception when his spirit left his body. It's what is it? Why is it so hot here? Why am I hot? Why is it hot where I am?
Right.
Because you're in hell. Why am I in hell? I killed so many Asians. Why am I in hell? Well, that's why you're in hell.
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to, man, and this isn't why I had you on, but it fires me up because I called him on Facebook yesterday, the Godfather of the American Empire. And I don't know if that's technically true.
I would say that's pretty accurate.
And it's that, and people think like being a part of an empire is a good thing, for the world, for democracy, for the American people. And it's not good for anything. It is not good for the world. More people are murdered by empires than anybody else. It's not good for democracy because, there's no such thing as it. And then it's not good for us because we're poorer because of it. It's
you're gonna think it's a good thing until the Goths come tearing down the place.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
That's the way it's gonna go. But anyway,
that's right.
Yeah. So, the devil today is getting his resume ready because Kissinger's down there taking over.
That's right. Well, Joey, talk to me. I wanted to bring you on. There's been some stuff going And something that I didn't realize, and we briefly talked about it on the episode before, that is regarding to Article 5.
Mhm.
Um, and I've noticed that the John Birch Society has put out some great videos. You're part of some of them. Other people are part of others. Some great informational videos about Article 5 and why it's a bad idea for us to do it. One thing I didn't realize is how bloody close we are to having that recommendation go through.
Okay, well, that's the thing, Mike. People say that we are, but we really aren't.
Okay.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. And there's a really good article by a Duke law professor published in the Yale Law School Journal, where he goes through and this is not it's not anti-Article 5 propaganda. This is a scholarly article from a Duke law professor published in the Yale Law Journal. So it does not have the stink of, propaganda on it. It's a
Okay.
scholarly piece. And he goes through there and he says, and his whole premise is that there is no such thing as constitutionally, there's no such thing as a limited convention for the proposing of amendments. And he goes through systematically saying, here's why. And the biggest reason why, Mike, and I challenge any of your listeners who are in favor of Article 5 to go over to the Convention of States, because they're the biggest proponent. You will notice one glaring deficiency in all of their stuff. They never cite Article 5. Because if you're going to do one thing that sort of makes you question this narrative that's been crafted by Convention of States, if you're going to do one thing, read Article 5 and you'll notice, well, the phrase Convention of States isn't there. And so one of the proponents, one of the big wigs at COS says, well, the Supreme Court used that. Of all the people to cite, if you're, a conservative, a constitutionalist, don't be citing the Supreme Court at me. So why invent it? Why not just call it what the Constitution calls it, a convention for proposing amendments? Why do we have to invent new phrases? And all I'm saying is everything they say, Mike, literally, and I have an article coming up in the next couple of days in Epic Times that refutes every little thing they claim because it's all fantasy.
Yeah.
It's all fantasy. I'll give you the exclusive. I talk about in the article. I say I'm pulling back the curtain from the Wizard of Cos. COS, and so I'm like, because they're just making things up. And so when it comes to people saying, like, I saw an email from a lady today, and she's all worked up that they're about to get the convention. I'm like, this will not happen. It might happen, but not happen the way you think, because constitutionally speaking, there's no limiting of the convention.
Okay.
Article 5 does not create, does not describe, does not set forth a process of calling a limited convention. It does not do that, Mike. And so many of these applications are void on their face, as we say in the law, because they say, we want a convention for balancing the federal budget. Well, that application doesn't get counted. We want a convention for establishing term limits. Well, that application is scrapped, void, right? So it's not as close as people think. It needs to be fought against, and I'm spending most of my time every day now fighting against it. But it isn't as, I'm telling you, people need to they need to read, first of all. Read Article 5. Read what it really says, because one of the things the COS people say, one of the things the pro-convention people say is, well, this is our way to bypass Congress. Really? Because Congress gets to call the convention. Now, yes, if they receive the requisite number of applications, They shall call the convention. Okay. I don't know about you, but do you think Congress is just going to sit there with a simple calculator and some applications to go 1, 2?
Right.
No, they're going to fight it
Yep.
and they're going to drag it out. It's liable to go. Are these applications, do they qualify constitutionally? Will be something decided in a decade by the Supreme Court. This government that pro Article 5 people rightly say is so, in the article that I'm refuting, he said, the federal government is a mess. Well, you know what? That's the lead story in this month's edition of Duh Magazine,
Right.
right? We all know that. The problem is that same messed up government is the one you're looking to correct a messed up government. It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, and I think
Have you
I
heard
don't
of interventions? How
right.
many alcoholics walk into rehab? Hey, man, I got a real problem. I'm here to help. How how many do that? Very
Yeah,
few.
very
You
few.
have an well, nullification is intervention, my man. And
Yeah.
we can do that, and we could literally do it tomorrow. You've got the head of COS saying, this could take 10 to 25 years. In 25 years, this country will be unrecognizable.
Right. And I think that's the problem. So and not to give the devil his due, but to understand where people who support it, maybe some, why people would be inclined to support it. It's true. As you said, the front cover of Dumb Magazine is that the federal government's out of control. That are seemingly on a daily basis, you're seeing the tyrants in Washington, overstepping their bounds,
Yeah.
whether that be through police action, whether that be through war, whether that be through taxation. I mean, we could cite, thing after thing after thing, and people are
Right.
tired of it. They're sick of it, and they want to see change. And I don't know about you, but one of the questions that I would receive a lot or get a lot is well, what am I supposed to do about it? We're all talking about the problem. What am I supposed to do? And so these Article 5 people come along and say, well, here's a solution, but the problem is it's not a solution. It opens up such a bigger can of worms.
It's a cure that's worse than the disease.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I tell people, look, if you developed a cancerous tumor in your leg, would you rather doctor use a scalpel or a chainsaw? An Article 5 convention is a chainsaw. I'm saying that we haven't used the scalpel. Let's try. Maybe we can't. Maybe the cancer has metastasized so much we can't save the leg. Maybe. Let's have a go at it, though. Let's let the doctor go in there with the scalpel and try to remove the cancerous tissue and save the healthy tissue. We haven't done that. Y'all are calling for the dropping of an atomic bomb when we haven't even fired a single missile.
Right.
Relax.
And if
Let's try it. And if you're going to keep looking to Washington to fix Washington, we're going to keep having this discussion year after year after year because they are an alcoholic who denies they have a problem. Our only hope is intervention. Our only hope is forcing them into rehab. And the way we do that is by the use of state legislators, not state legislators calling for some convention that may or may not happen, and a convention that could end up, like the Convention of 1787, giving us an entirely new constitution and an entirely new form of government. When they say there's no fear of a runaway convention, they are lying. They are purposefully deceiving their followers, Mike. It's not they're mistaking history, right? That's not the issue. They are lying. Because
Yeah.
you can simply look, here's the congressional resolution authorizing a convention, here's the predetermined rules, here's the subject matter, and day one thrown out the window. Day one. That's just a historical fact that they like to ignore. And the way they do that is make sure their supporters never read Article 5, never read it. Because then they can say things like, Congress has no role. Congress decides who ratifies it.
Right.
And they say, the people. Guess what? 2 words don't appear in it. The people. Yes, you can have indirect influence through your state legislators. Sure. Good luck with all that, because every state I know is nosing around trying to get a better spot at the trough to, the federal trough. I don't know a single state that isn't,
And
you
and if
know?
you and if you think about the people who would go to such a convention, if you think about, even
Come
the
on, Mike.
Republicans, if you think about the people that would go, we're talking about it turns into such an oligarchy where everybody's going to get want a piece of their little fiefdom.
Yes. Yeah, two things. Number one, so the COS people say, well, we had a simulated convention and there was no problem like that. Yeah, filled with hand-picked delegates who already you knew supported your project. Do you think that's gonna? They had all of them Republicans from Illinois. Do you think Illinois? There will be no Republicans from Illinois at that. And guess what? The Constitution doesn't say how many delegates you get to send. Who gets to pick the delegates? Does the governor do it? Does the governor? It doesn't. It's silent. It's silent.
Right.
The
Yeah.
governor. Maybe Gavin Newsom gets to choose him for California. There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe, if the state government Illinois gets to choose them, you're gonna. What about New
And
York? Guess who New York's gonna send? Hillary Clinton for sure.
Yep.
Oh, she's
Oh no,
she's
they're going to send 300 Hillary Clintons.
yeah, and you don't know, and there's no, and this is what I'm saying, Mike. This is the part that COS loves to. It's the silent part that they just think they can ignore, but the John Birch Society has been screaming this from the rooftops. Read Article 5. This thing is not what you're being told it is, because all of it, all of this procedure, who chooses the delegates, how many you can choose, all of that silent in the Constitution. And if it's silent, guess what? You can guarantee that tyranny is going to fill that vacuum.
Yep.
And you're going to have people like New York, exactly. New York, it's going to be a popularity contest of who can be the weirdest progressive. Al Sharpton, Hillary Clinton. I mean, think of George Soros, Bill Gates,
Yep.
Gavin
Well,
Newsom.
and even if you think about a state like Arizona, if John McCain was alive, we would send John McCain.
If John McCain were alive, you'd have John McCain. You'd have what's his
Mitt
name?
Romney.
Mitt Romney will be coming from. Oh, you can right now bet your farm that Mitt Romney will be representing Utah. You can put it down right now. Mitt Romney representing Utah. Arizona, I don't know who they'd choose, because Arizona is such a mess right now politically.
It's such a mess.
But even Tennessee, if you say someone like, well, our governor is conservative. No, he isn't.
Right.
No, he just accepted $150 billion from the feds to increase the police officers in school, right? To surveillance in the schools. I mean, this is no conservative, but he'll be put forth as a conservative that will, but how many? Like you say, what if New York? There's nothing to stop New York from sending 300 Hillary Clintons to that
Right.
convention. There's nothing.
And the second that Florida decides to send 350, they're sending 400.
And this is what I'm saying. This is all the things that the COS purposefully ignores, and they pound, and you being a musician, they pound one note. The people, the people, the people, the people, the people, the people. The people have no say in this. None. Zero, Mike. Zero say. I'm sorry, this isn't a democracy, it's a republic. There will be, your say is indirect through the election of your state legislators. Good luck with that. Because it's gotten us such a great place now.
Right.
I mean, since the Constitution was written, the states have been empowered explicitly to stand as a barrier, to interpose between the federal government and the people, and they've done nothing.
Every single one of them have been derelict in duty in that regard. All 50 states. And
every one of them.
And there's and at the end of the day, Joey, and this, you're actually the one that has been the biggest promoter of this. the end of the day, it's our fault. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's us that allowed state legislatures that put in state legislatures to allow them to suck at the teat of the federal
Mhm.
government and allow them to dictate and bring in their ATF people and bring in their IRS people and bring in their COVID people and bring in all these people that are there to suppress their people. And they do it just because of the love of money and the love of power.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's At the end of the day, the blame goes on us because there's no tyranny without obedience to the tyrant. And you have someone asked me last night. I probably told you about that book before, "Killing No Murder," by Edward Sexby, and I mean, oh, dude, it's so logically laid out and so powerful. And someone texted me last night and said, "Hey, do you have a quotation from the founding fathers about this thing?" And I'm like, "Not that I know of." I said, "But they didn't need more than Sidney and Trenchard and Gordon to tell them
Right.
that
They were
getting rid of a
quoting.
tyrant was a sacred obligation." Because if you look around and you say to yourself, "Oh, there's a lot of wickedness in government," well, look in a mirror. Don't look at a tyrant, because that's what tyrants do, right? You look in the mirror and say, "How did we ever allow this?" Well, two things: education and virtue is what Sidney and the founding fathers and Trenchard and Gordon. Once you get people stupid, or let's just say ignorant, once you allow yourselves to become ignorant, and then once you lose your virtue, then it's done. It's over, man. It's over. Game over. You can invent and John Adams said it, you can invent a million different ways. You can have the people elect their representatives. You can have the greatest constitution, but if that people has lost their virtue, then none of it's going to matter.
Right.
None of it.
And we don't have to look past our own Declaration of Independence, because it took a virtuous people to put off and to recognize the tyranny that was put upon them, and we just don't recognize it. I mean, I think 80% of Americans today literally would not recognize the tyranny that they're under. They may say, "Oh yeah, taxes are too high," but they wouldn't say
Right.
we shouldn't have taxes. They would say, "Oh, you know what? It's we probably shouldn't fight a war in Ukraine or whatever." But they definitely want America to be the policeman of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I go and give these speeches. I went that week long in Maryland and Virginia giving speeches, and I was at the end, I would always do like a 20, 30-minute Q&A, and I was always genuinely disheartened when people would say things like, "Well, I don't see that we've had any freedoms taken from us," or they would say, "Would you have us withdraw from the world?" or "Would you have us not support Israel?" And I'm just like, these are people that if I'd asked them coming in, "Do you support the Constitution being followed 100%?" They all would have said yes. But the minute you put to them questions challenging that claim, it falls apart because they don't support it. They have posters or pictures of the founding fathers and they throw quotations on their Facebook page, but they don't agree with those people. It's like Demosthenes, or no, it was Isocrates. I think I mentioned it to you before. Isocrates, when he's like, and he says, if a person from another country got dropped into Athens right now, the thing that would confuse him most is how we praise our ancestors, but we act nothing like them. And I mean, is anything a more apt description of us? If an alien came down here and he looked around and he's like, wow, these Americans, they really, really value their founding fathers. And then he looked at our policies and our laws, he'd say, why? They don't do anything like them, And so that's where we are. We are just like that, sitting there with Isocrates in 300 BC. If someone showed up, they'd say, these people praise their ancestors, but behave nothing like them. And so, getting back to the Article 5 thing, the thing I tell people is, look, if you're going to rely on, because Rob Nadelson, for example, says the people can exercise their power and force their state legislators to call a convention, to issue an application for a convention. If we have that kind of power, why haven't we used it all these years? And why haven't we exercised it to elect state legislators that would do as they are already constitutionally authorized to do, and refuse to cooperate with any unconstitutional act of the federal. Why don't they do? Because we don't have that power, and because at the end of the day, most of us like the stuff, man. At the end of the day, it's like I remember having a speech one time and saying, you know, think of the things you don't get. You don't get a subsidized mortgage. Any of you have a VA loan or a USDA loan or a FHA loan? Those things are gone under the Constitution. Any of y'all send your kids to public? Those things are gone under the Constitution. Any of y'all have unemployment? Those things are gone. Social Security, gone. Medicaid, gone. Medicare, gone. All those things are gone. And people are like, whoa, 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 whoa. Pump the brakes. Let's just, let's get rid of them Democrats. Pew. I'm
Right.
like, that, come on, man. Come on.
No, that is exactly spot on, man. You know, freedom is scary. And unless we're able to face that fear and be like, okay, you know, I remember my years ago talking to my parents, and this is back in the Bill Clinton days, and and they said, you know, one of them mentioned how my grandparents probably voted for Bill Clinton. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. And I was like, why? It's like, well, because they're told and worried about their social security.
Yep.
It's like,
Yeah.
you know, if that's the attitude, then man, then we are doomed, because then we have no virtue.
Well, but think about it, Mike. I mean, we think about how we outsource everything. We outsource the education of our children. For most part, we outsource the raising of our children, right? We outsource intimacy through pornography. We outsource education. We outsource childcare. We outsource the care of our elderly. We outsource everything. Everything that a virtuous person would do himself, we have learned to outsource it. And now we've sown all that. We've sown all that, and we're reaping. We're reaping the result of that which we have sown. And it's an eternal principle. It's not even a religious principle. It's a bloody natural law principle. Get out there and throw some seeds in the ground and stuff will grow, even if you don't tend to it. Right? I know I had a professor in college. He's like, you realize that people have been planting things in Europe for 5,000 years. But if you go out in any yard in Europe and throw some seeds out there, that stuff's gonna grow. You literally, it might not be the best, it might not be, as fruitful as it otherwise could if you tended it, but you could live. And so here we are. We've thrown out these seeds. We outsource literally everything valuable to human existence, and then we wonder how we got here. Well, there's a way back, and the way back is virtue, which, in my opinion, requires repentance and faith on the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, others can define it as long it's like that sign when you go into Austin, Texas. It ain't when you got here, it's that you got here. That's what I say about virtue. I don't care if you get there through Muhammad and Allah. I don't care if you get there through Jehovah. I don't care how you get there, just get there. Let's get ourselves back to that. And then when we get there, let's take a look at what we need to do politically and what we need. And then we'll start to have some agreement, because we'll see some of these things the way we ought to see them. Because right now, we're so ignorant and so wicked that it's really like, who was it that said, talked about how when it was Plutarch in his essay on anger that we're talking about in book club. And you remember in
Right.
Plutarch, in that essay, he says, it's like when your house is on fire and filled with flames and smoke and you
Yep.
can't find your way out. Right. He
Yeah.
says, that's the way we are right now with the tyranny and with the wickedness. Our house is on fire and it's filled with smoke and we just can't see our way out.
And when we can't see our way out, that's when charlatans can come in and
Right.
propose things like the Article 5 stuff, and propose things like,
Yeah.
and we can get snookered. It's easy to get snookered when you can't see a way out, and you got to just believe, oh, come this way and you'll be safe. Come that way and you'll be safe.
Well,
And
imagine if you had passed out in your, let's just say, your kitchen, but you're in your kitchen and there's flames and smoke everywhere, and you're convinced that the whole house is on fire, and someone comes along and says, "Hey, I'm gonna bulldoze your house," and you're like, "Oh, fine, do it. It's on fire." And then you find out it was like 1/20th of your house, and it could have been put out with some water.
right, with the
But it's
garden
too
hose.
late. But it's too
Yeah.
late, and that's what's happening. And I'm not saying that the whole house isn't on fire, but let's try to put out some of the fires and see if that helps us get control.
Well, and as you've said, there are tools that we have never used that we ought to try using
Yeah.
first.
There are tools we've never used. The Convention of States people are lying. They are I'm calling them out. They are lying when they say this is a fact. This is a fact. They're lying about those things and they know it. Okay. Second thing is Article 5 is mostly silent on the process. And if they think that that process is going to be the way they've described it, they've sold it to their supporters, that also is an act of deception, because the same government that they rightly call out for being so corrupt for so long, that corruption will persist when it comes to the process of calling and carrying out an Article 5 convention, period.
Yeah.
And
Well,
when you get a convention filled with Hillary Clinton's, George Soros's, Gavin Newsom's, when that happens, honestly, I will hate to say I told you so, because they will walk out of there, and when that lady across the street says, "What kind of government did you give us, Mr. Newsom?" He's not going to respond, "A republic if you can keep it." He's just going to say, "What business is it of yours?"
right. Yep.
Here's the feces map of the United. You think the feces map of San Francisco is something? Wait till we see the feces map of the United States.
Except for certain little,
Oh, there'll be pockets that are perfect.
villages.
Don't
Yep.
get me wrong. There'll be plenty of Chinese flags and clean
Yep.
streets around Bill Gates's house and
Right.
Newsom's house and Billary's house and all of them. They'll be fine. They'll be just fine. But you and me will be issued, we'll be issued identification and entry key cards for whichever particular gulag we've been assigned to live in. But don't worry. Don't worry. We'll have Wi-Fi. We'll have plenty of food. We'll have a living wage provided to us. Right? Don't worry, citizen. Everything will be fine. And so you can sign on to that if you want to. But the biggest thing, Mike, and I don't get it, and I guess I kind of get it because it's the same about everything, but all you got to do is read Article 5 and you instantly discover that they're just making things up.
Yeah.
Your state legislature, tell me where it says the people have any say. Tell me where it says that the state legislators will choose the delegates. Tell me where it says how many delegates. Tell me any of that. Tell me where it says Congress has no role.
Right.
Tell me where it says you can limit the convention. You can't. They are making it up. I don't know whether they're making it up to profit, wink, or if they're just making it up because it's they're just that ignorant about the Constitution.
Yeah. Somehow
I don't.
yeah.
I don't think they're that ignorant.
I don't think that
I
is.
think they're that savvy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't think you pay rent on high rises in Houston
yeah.
on hopes and dreams.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so, a couple, and you've mentioned them in this and other shows that we've done together. I think it's important for people to reiterate, though, some of the tools that we have. Number one, nullification at every level. You can do that at your own local level. How do you do that? Pull your kid out of school. There's
There you
number
go.
one. Pull your kid out of school. Then you don't have to worry about any of those, board meetings or anything. Number two, you can encourage, either through voting if that's your prerogative, or some sort of influence to influence your state legislature to stop allowing federal regulations. I think Arizona, Missouri had, with the help of the 10th Amendment Center, had some legislation on Second Amendment stuff that kind of went in the right direction a few months ago.
Yeah.
I don't know where that's sitting right now, but I think that but those are the kinds of things that you can do on, as you said, like at a surgical level.
Right. And Mike, I mean, look, I hate saying this because I don't like making people feel guilty. But here's the deal, man. If you truly care about forcing the federal beast back inside its constitutional cage, if you really want to improve the status of liberty in your state, ask yourself how many legislative sessions you've attended, how many emails you've sent your legislator, how many texts you've sent your legislator, how many times you've done anything this week to move the needle back in that direction, and then compare that with how many times you've watched rubbish TV, how many times you've watched rubbish videos, how many hours you spent scrolling on the bloody social media. Compare those two things, and that will reveal to you your priorities. And it's my contention, Mike, that as we sort out these priorities and genuinely, you say it's like James, right? You say you believe swell. Well, the devils also believe and tremble. You say you want liberty, swell. Show me your desire for liberty by your works. Just as James says, show me your faith by your works. Show me your desire for liberty by your works. Contact your people, man. Literally light them up. I light my dudes up, man. They need to know that we're watching and we will hold them accountable, and that we're not playing. This isn't some sort of project. And I'll take it back, Mike, and this may sound self-serving, but I hand to heaven it isn't. The John Birch Society, you go there, you sign up, you join, you get access to tools, not only if to be, sort of self-guided. You go to their little action thing and you're like, okay, I hate the Federal Reserve, billion tools for that. But you also go to a chapter meeting, dude, you go there and you go consistently, they will have tools for you to, okay, here's a letter for you to send to your state legislator or your federal congressman here, and you'll have these opportunities to actually do something. And it's sort of like training wheels on a bike. Eventually, these acts will become second nature, you'll know how to interact, and you can do it on anything you feel important. You don't have to fight everything at once, but pick a hill, man, and charge up it.
Yep.
Pick a hill and charge up that hill, man.
That's
And
right.
if you do that consistently, you are not going to affect Congress, dude.
Yep. And there are plenty of hills to choose from.
Right.
That's what's encouraging. You could think of it as a discouragement as far as like, oh man, there's so, there's one hill after another. But no, we got lots of people. And if you're just willing to run up your little hill, there's other people for the other hills.
Yeah, if Article 5 is your jam, do that. If the Federal Reserve is your jam, do that. If nullification, do that. If climate change, I'm telling you, man, when I did my speeches, I just pulled up the John Birch Society site and I'm like, look at this action thing. Surely one of these things is what you want to devote yourself to. And everybody's like, I didn't know we could do that. Dude, you open up the Federal Reserve site and there's like blah, 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 blah. So many things for you to work on. And anything, climate change and immigration, if that's your jam, whatever you want to do, there's things in the John. And that's ultimately why I agreed to be a full-time employee, is because I saw, hey, we are going to either hang separately or hang together.
Right.
And so let's work together, get some stuff done. Maybe we have to hold our nose about some stuff that we don't like about other people. But dude, Once we get the Constitution restored, get some liberty restored, then we can sit down and worry about hashing out our differences. But like, last time I was on, like I said, let's just worry about getting some stuff straightened out first. And then we can worry about the little, it's like when you buy a house, right? You don't refuse to buy a house because the grass is too tall or because there's this or that. This closet door gets stuck, right? If you like the house, you buy the house and then you start fixing up the little things. Let's do that. We have a house that our ancestors have bequeathed to us. It's a really nice colonial house. Let's just fix it up together and then let's buy into the house.
Yeah.
Right? Start fixing the big things like the roof and the plumbing and the electricity. And then we can sit down one of these days and say who gets what room and, all of that. Who gets to live in the room.
Then we have something worthy of defending fiercely, with
Precisely. Precisely.
And that's where we got to do, man.
Precisely. Hey, I wanted to say, I know we're probably getting close to time, and I wanted to remind everybody and remind you that December 7th is the anniversary of the martyrdom of Algernon Sidney. And so, like every other December 7th, this December 7th, I'll be having a memorial live via Zoom. I will send that link to you and you can send it out to your listeners. And I'll be doing the same thing on my sadly neglected podcast, but I'll be doing that as well. And I'll be making videos for the New American and stuff. But via Zoom on December 7th, I will be doing I don't know how many years in a row I've done this now, but many, 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 many years, memorial to Colonel Sidney on the anniversary of his martyrdom. And so, yeah, just wanted to make sure to get that in before I forgot.
Thank you. To say. No, I think that is absolutely important because, one of the things of rekindling that spirit is reminding ourselves of what others before us have done,
and I'll give you a little exclusive. There's a better than average chance that Algernon Sidney's 13th grandnephew will be in attendance live from Algernon Sidney's house.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that just where he's Philip Sidney. I'm talking to him, been talking to him. I mean, I've talked to him a lot. We're friends, but I'm trying to get the schedule right. And that's why I didn't tell you a time, is because I'm trying to get the time squared away with Philip. So live from Penshurst Place, the home of Algernon Sidney, we'll have Algernon Sidney's 13th grandnephew live.
That's special. Place. That's special, yeah. Man. That's cool.
Yeah, right there. And so anyway, we're trying to work that out. And I'm hopeful that we can, since we got, but yeah, it's 6 days from now, December 7th, which is also the anniversary of the death of Cicero. And everybody tends to remember it. It's odd when you start to think about it. December 7th is, everybody remembers that day as Pearl Harbor. And I always think, was that so we wouldn't ever remember Sidney? You know what I mean? To replace that memory. It's kind of like nobody remembers that now. But anyway, just
we will
keep that in your head.
Will.
Yeah, December 7th. Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. It's like last year. I think last year I was dying.
Oh, you were dying, man. I think I have a recording of that somewhere.
Go listen. Oh, that recording sounds like Darth Vader after a pack of cigarettes. Yeah, it's pretty rough. It's pretty rough. But anyway, this year I'll be all healthy and happy, and I'm preparing my presentation. I'm trying, and it'll be a great celebration for sure.
It will be. And you know what? I just want to say, thank you again for supporting this little podcast. Love having you on. We'll do it again very soon.
Anytime, brother. Mike is gone.
You are listening to And If Love Remains.
Gone, but not forgotten.
First of 23 installments requested by Dr. Levitt. Trying to be compliance as taking home and our whole organization.